The WNBA thought they could slap Sophie Cunningham with a fine and make her go away. Instead, they created a legend. That tiny penalty didn't just get ignored. It backfired so spectacularly that it became a multi-million-dollar victory for Cunningham, leaving the entire league completely humiliated. Now, the double standard they've begged everyone to ignore is being exposed for the world to see. In a league that seemingly refuses to protect its golden goose, Caitlyn Clark, from a relentless campaign of cheap shots, one player decided she had seen enough. Sophie Cunningham took matters into her own hands, and her one act of defiance sparked a firestorm that blew the lid off the WNBA's biggest failure. This is how a $500 fine became the most expensive mistake the league has ever made. The rise of Caitlyn Clark wasn't just big for the WNBA, it was a total, undeniable resurrection. To understand the explosion that followed, you first have to understand the phenomenon they now call Clarkonomics, and the numbers are simply staggering. Before Clark, the league's average viewership hovered around 450,000 per game. After her arrival, that number skyrocketed to an average of 1.25 million for Indiana Fever games, an explosion of nearly 180%. The league's overall attendance surged by over 30%, but even that statistic is misleading. Teams like the Washington Mystics and the Los Angeles Sparks had to move their home games against the Fever from their regular arenas to massive NBA venues, just to accommodate the tens of thousands of fans clamoring to see her play. She single-handedly signed a colossal $28 million deal with Nike before ever stepping on a professional court, a deal larger than almost any in the league's history. Clark wasn't just a player, she was the WNBA's golden goose, their lifeline to mainstream relevance and a level of financial stability they had only dreamed of. But behind the sold-out arenas, the record-shattering ratings, and the media frenzy, a much darker narrative was unfolding on the hardwood. On the court, Caitlyn Clark had a target painted squarely on her back. In her rookie season alone, she became the recipient of a jaw-dropping 17% of all flagrant fouls called in the entire league. She was pushed, shoved, hip-checked, and elbowed with a ferocity that felt deeply personal, and much of it went uncalled. The message from the league's veterans, and more disturbingly the officials, was brutally clear. Welcome to the league, kid. You might be the star, but we run this court. This relentless physicality wasn't just a random welcome to the pros initiation. It was a quiet, unspoken war, one seemingly fueled by a deep-seated professional jealousy. For over 2 decades, WNBA veterans had scratched and clawed for every scrap of media attention and fought tooth and nail for better pay, only to watch a 22-year-old rookie waltz in and instantly command more fame and earn more from a single endorsement deal than many of them would see in their entire careers. Her official $76,000 rookie salary became a popular yet misleading talking point. The real story was in her estimated $11 million in off-court earnings from giants like Gatorade, State Farm, and Nike, which created a financial reality that was alien to most of her peers. This simmering tension was perfectly captured before Clark even played a single professional game, when WNBA legend Diana Taurasi famously and chillingly warned, "Reality is coming." That reality manifested as a relentless campaign of physical intimidation, one that was seemingly ignored or even enabled by the referees. Incidents like Kennedy Carter's blatant off-ball shoulder check, a foul so obvious it was only upgraded to a flagrant one after a massive public outcry, became the disturbing norm. The league's silence was deafening. By failing to step in and protect their #1 asset, they created a dangerous power vacuum, essentially giving the old guard a license to haze their new phenom. They were letting the Wolves guard the golden goose, and it was only a matter of time before someone got bit. And in the middle of this escalating storm, a new player was about to step into the spotlight, not for her scoring, but for her unwavering loyalty. Enter Sophie Cunningham, a 28-year-old guard from the University of Missouri, known for her relentless hustle, her tenacious defense, and a fiery demeanor that earned her the nickname Spicy Sophie. Her reputation wasn't just for show, it was earned through years of gritty, unapologetic, and highly physical play. But Cunningham had a secret weapon, a detail from her past that most fans, and even her opponents, were completely unaware of. At the tender age of 6, long before she ever picked up a basketball, she earned a black belt in Taekwondo. She wasn't just a basketball player, she was a disciplined, trained fighter. This background instilled in her a unique sense of justice and an unwillingness to back down from any confrontation. When she was traded to the Indiana Fever, she became more than just Clark's new teammate. She quickly evolved into her on-court bodyguard, watching silently from the wing game after game as the league's biggest star absorbed cheap shot after cheap shot. Cunningham saw what every fan saw. The referees weren't going to protect Clark. The league, in its baffling silence, wasn't going to protect Clark, so she made a decision. She would. She was just waiting for the right moment to send a message so loud and clear it would echo far beyond the four corners of the basketball court. That moment finally arrived during a fiery, high-stakes game against the Atlanta Dream. The atmosphere in the arena was already electric, with the tension on the court thick enough to cut with a knife. Clark was, as usual, being hounded, bumped, and held on every single play, with almost no whistles from the officials. Then, it happened. An Atlanta player set a brutal, bone-jarring, and completely illegal off-ball screen on Clark, blindsiding her and sending her sprawling hard to the floor. The whistle never blew. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The Indiana bench erupted in fury, screaming at the oblivious referees. But Sophie Cunningham didn't yell. She didn't complain to the officials. She just got even. On the very next defensive possession, as Atlanta's Crystal Dangerfield drove down the lane, Cunningham stepped up. It wasn't a block attempt, it was a calculated statement. She wrapped both of her arms around Dangerfield's waist and pulled her down to the ground in a hard, deliberate, and unmistakable foul. There was no pretense of playing the ball. It was a clear, raw act of retaliation. A message sent not just to the Atlanta Dream, but to the entire league. If you mess with our star, you will pay the price. The court immediately erupted into chaos. Players from both benches ran onto the floor. A shoving match ensued, and in the middle of it all stood Cunningham. She was immediately ejected, and as she walked off the court, she had a defiant, satisfied look on her face. She knew exactly what she had done, and she wasn't the least bit sorry. The WNBA front office responded swiftly, or so they thought. They handed down what they considered a standard punishment. Sophie Cunningham was fined a mere $500 for the flagrant foul and her role in the ensuing scuffle. To the league, it was a routine disciplinary action, a small price to close the chapter on another ugly on-court incident, but they had fundamentally and catastrophically misread the situation. That $500 piece of paper became the single greatest investment of Sophie Cunningham's entire career. While the league saw a penalty, the fans saw a hero. They were fed up with watching Caitlyn Clark get targeted without consequence. They were furious with the referee's persistent inaction. In that moment, Cunningham did what every single fan wished they could do. She fought back. Her bold action ignited an unprecedented firestorm online. In the 48 hours following the game, her social media following exploded. Her TikTok account surged from a respectable number to over 1.2 million followers. Her Instagram gained over 350,000 more. Her number 8 Fever jersey sold out completely on the official WNBA store within a day. A cottage industry of unofficial merchandise exploded online, with t-shirts bearing slogans like Sophie Cunningham, Enforcer, and The Clark Protector becoming instant bestsellers. She had become an icon of rebellion, a folk hero for a frustrated and protective fan base. With a single, calculated foul, she had turned a paltry $500 fine into a massive cultural moment and a personal financial goldmine. The financial impact of her newfound fame was breathtaking and almost immediate. Seasoned marketing experts estimated that the organic social media growth she gained in just 2 days would have cost a major brand well over $1 million to acquire through traditional advertising campaigns. Her value as a social media influencer skyrocketed overnight. A single sponsored post on her Instagram, which might have earned her a respectable $10,000 before the incident, could now command double, triple, or even quadruple that amount. She had instinctively tapped into a powerful, underserved, and highly lucrative market that the WNBA itself had completely overlooked: the passionate, protective, and fiercely loyal fan base of Caitlyn Clark. While the league was still struggling to figure out how to market its other established stars, Cunningham had single-handedly created a powerful and authentic brand for herself in less than a minute of on-court action. The loyal enforcer. Her meteoric rise in popularity wasn't just a fleeting viral trend, it was a reflection of a fundamental shift in the league's power dynamics. Fans were no longer just cheering for skill, they were cheering for loyalty and courage. By standing up for Clark, Clark, Sophie Cunningham made herself more famous, more relevant, and infinitely more marketable than years of simply playing the game ever could. She was laughing all the way to the bank, while the league was left looking foolish, out of touch, and completely powerless. This single incident, born from one player's frustration, laid bare the WNBA's deepest and most alarming vulnerabilities. Here was a league that, even in the midst of the unprecedented Clark boom, reportedly lost over $40 million in its most watched season ever. Its entire financial model was fragile, and its newfound relevance and future survival were almost entirely dependent on the health and performance of one 22-year-old superstar. The evidence was terrifyingly clear when Clark was forced to miss a handful of games due to minor injuries accumulated from the physical play. The league's national television ratings plummeted by a shocking 55%. Ticket sales in host arenas dropped off a cliff for non-Clark games. The data was undeniable. There was no rookie class effect. There was no overall talent boom lifting all boats. There was the Caitlyn Clark effect and nothing else. Cunningham's act of defiance exposed the league's terrifying predicament in the harshest possible light. Their most valuable asset, the one player holding their entire enterprise together, was being systematically targeted on the court, and the league was either unwilling or completely unable to stop it. It was a crisis entirely of their own making, a ticking time bomb where their failure to protect their star could not only lead to a catastrophic injury, but could also permanently alienate the millions of new fans she had single-handedly brought to their doorstep. While Cunningham's social media exploded, the mainstream sports media threw gasoline on the fire. Prominent voices like Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith dedicated entire segments to the incident, not just condemning the initial foul on Clark, but praising Cunningham's loyalty. They echoed the exact sentiment of the fans. If the league won't do its job, the players have to. The narrative was no longer about a simple flagrant foul, it was about a systemic failure of leadership. In a desperate attempt to regain control, a small but vocal group of critics started a petition calling for Cunningham to be banned from the league for her unsportsmanlike conduct. But this move backfired spectacularly. The petition barely gained a few hundred signatures and was immediately drowned out by a tsunami of support for Cunningham. It only served to paint her critics as out of touch and further cemented her status as a folk hero standing against a corrupt system. Every attempt to vilify her only made her more powerful, proving that the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict and the league was on the losing side. Behind the scenes, the incident ripped the league in two, sparking an unspoken civil war among the players. On one side were the old school veterans and rival teams. The Atlanta Dream's coach and players publicly condemned Cunningham's foul as stupid and disrespectful, arguing that physical play is just part of the game. They represented the faction that believed in the hazing culture, that rookies, no matter how famous, need to be physically tested to earn respect. But on the other side, a powerful new alliance was forming. The Indiana Fever roster rallied around Cunningham, their public statements and on-court demeanor showing a newfound solidarity. They weren't just a collection of players anymore. They were a unit, united by their mission to protect their star. This division wasn't just about one foul. It was a philosophical clash between the league's past and its future. The old guard's belief in brutal initiation versus a new generation's understanding that protecting the league's biggest draw was simply good for business. The WNBA wasn't just a league of 12 teams anymore. It was a league of two warring ideologies. Cunningham's $500 fine did more than just make her famous. It put the WNBA's officiating and disciplinary process under a microscope, and what it revealed was a shocking double standard. Fans and analysts immediately began comparing her penalty to others. The infamous shoulder check on Clark by Chennedy Carter resulted in no suspension, and was only upgraded to a flagrant foul after the fact. Other hard fouls on Clark throughout the season had been met with minimal penalties or were ignored completely. Yet Cunningham's act of retaliation was met with an immediate ejection and a fine. The math didn't add up and the hypocrisy was glaring. The league appeared to be punishing the reaction to the violence far more than the initial violence itself, especially when that violence was directed at their biggest star. It created the perception that it was open season on Caitlyn Clark, but any attempt to defend her would be punished. This wasn't just poor officiating. It looked like a deliberate systemic bias, and it destroyed any remaining credibility the league office had. The long-term fallout from this single event has permanently altered the power structure of the WNBA. Sophie Cunningham is no longer just Spicy Sophie, the gritty defender. She is now the Enforcer, a national brand with a massive, loyal following and lucrative marketing potential. The Indiana Fever, once a struggling franchise, now have a powerful new identity. They are the team that has their superstars back, a narrative that deeply resonates with fans and sells merchandise. But the most significant consequence is the precedent it has set. The league has shown its hand. They cannot or will not consistently protect their main attraction. The message this sends to other teams is clear. If you want to keep your star players safe, you need your own enforcer. This has created a dangerous new arms race, where teams may start valuing a player's toughness and willingness to retaliate as much as their skill. The WNBA has lost control of the narrative and, more importantly, the court. The players are now policing the game themselves, creating a volatile and unpredictable environment that threatens the very integrity of the sport. In the end, Sophie Cunningham's $500 fine was a small price to pay for exposing a truth the WNBA couldn't hide. Her foul was more than just a moment of on-court justice. It was a masterful, if unintentional, business move that paid off handsomely. She became the enforcer the league desperately needed but stubbornly refused to create, a symbol of defiance for fans who felt their favorite player was being wronged. By getting her hands dirty, she cemented her status as a fan favorite, turning a small league penalty into a multi-million-dollar opportunity and becoming a household name. Caitlyn Clark's unparalleled influence makes her the league's most indispensable asset, but it's players like Sophie Cunningham who are rewriting the rules of engagement. The league tried to punish her, but she's the one who won. It leaves a burning question for the future of the WNBA. Will the league finally step up to protect its stars, or will they simply watch as more players decide to take justice and their careers into their own hands?